Hello, Authority Gap listeners, and welcome to the Authority Gap podcast, the AI-hosted companion series for consulting firm founders and B2B expert-led service firms that want to become easier for buyers to understand, trust, recommend, and choose. In this episode, we're looking at the invisible shortlist. And here's the question. What if the buyer is deciding who feels credible before your firm even knows there is an opportunity?
Yeah, that is, it's a pretty terrifying thought for a lot of founders out there.
Right. I mean, imagine this scenario for a second. You lose a massive, six-figure deal to a competitor. And the worst part is, for a fact, that your methodology is way better than theirs.
Oh, yeah, that absolutely stings.
It's the worst. But here is the real gut punch. What if you didn't lose that deal when the RFP went out, or during the pitch meeting?
You lost it months ago.
Exactly. What if you lost it 3 months before you even knew the prospect was looking? All because of this quiet, stealthy evaluation you had no idea was happening.
And that scenario, it just completely upends how most founders think about the sales cycle. I mean, we're all conditioned to believe that the evaluation starts the moment a prospect raises their hand.
Right, like when they fill out a form on the website.
Yeah, or when that first discovery call gets booked. But the reality of how high-stakes purchasing actually works, it's much quieter, and it starts way, way earlier.
So for this deep dive, our mission is to really pull back the curtain on how buyers form those early credibility impressions, long before a formal proposal is ever requested.
Long before a sales call, even.
Honestly, before even a referral conversation takes place. And we're talking directly to you, the consulting firm founder listening right now, because this is a practical guide.
Totally, because your goal isn't just to be found in the market, right?
Just showing up in a search result or on a LinkedIn feed, it's not enough anymore. The actual goal is to become easier to place in the buyer's mind.
And that concept of being easy to place is central to everything I'll unpack today. Because there's this profound myth in professional services, what the source material calls the myth of the starting line.
The myth of the starting line.
Yeah. Firms operate under this assumption that the starting line of a deal is when the buyer officially initiates contact. But buyers actually start narrowing down their options entirely under their radar.
So let's talk about the mechanics of that stealth mode evaluation.
Yeah.
Because, if a buyer doesn't even know what they need yet, what are they actually doing out there?
Well, they are trying to define their own problem. Before your firm even knows this buyer exists, they are experiencing internal friction.
Like a metric slipping or something.
Exactly. A project is stalling or a crisis is looming. So they're out there quietly searching for language, for a new perspective, or for proof to help them make sense of what's going wrong.
So they aren't even looking for a vendor yet.
No, not at all. They are looking for clarity. And as they consume content or, look at websites and read LinkedIn posts to find that clarity, they are subconsciously excluding firms.
This subconscious exclusion is just fascinating to me. Let's break down the why behind this. Because if a buyer's just casually researching, why are they so quick to just cross a firm off their mental list?
It really comes down to the mechanics of risk. In high-trust, high-ticket consulting decisions, buyers are incredibly risk-averse.
Oh, for sure.
They're protecting their time, their budget, and, honestly, most importantly, their internal political capital.
Right, because if things go south, it's on them.
Exactly. Think about how political capital works in a corporate setting. If a VP of operations brings a consulting firm into a serious conversation with their CEO, that VP has to justify the choice.
Yeah, their neck is on the line.
So if the CEO asks, hey, why are we talking to this firm? And the VP cannot give a clear one-sentence answer because the consulting firm's messaging was too vague, the VP looks incompetent.
And that is the absolute destruction of political capital.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense. If a firm's value requires too much cognitive effort for the buyer to decode, they just won't risk their reputation trying to explain it to their boss.
No, they just move on to a safer, easier to explain option.
And they do this without ever notifying the firm they just rejected. You don't get an email saying, hey, we decided not to call you because your website was confusing.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? But no, you are just met with total silence.
Okay, let me use an analogy here because I think it helps frame the stakes. This isn't like checking a restaurant's menu in the window before you walk inside.
Right.
This is more like evaluating a surgeon. If you need a complex heart procedure, you don't wait until you're lying on the operating table to see if the surgeon is any good.
No, definitely not.
You look for signals of their expertise long before you even schedule the consultation. You look at their specialty, their credentials, the papers they've published.
Yeah, you look at all of it.
But let me push back on this a bit. Because if a consulting firm is truly excellent at what they do, if their internal methodology is brilliant and their client outcomes are objectively stellar, shouldn't their deep expertise just speak for itself once they get in the room?
What's fascinating here is the assumption buried in that question, once they get in the room.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Yeah, the market doesn't experience your firm from the inside. Buyers don't sit in on your delivery meetings. They don't see the nuance of your internal frameworks or the brilliance of your whiteboarding sessions.
Right, they have no idea about any of that.
They only see the fragments you leave on the outside. And they use those external fragments to decide if you even get in the room in the first place.
Wow. So you're assuming they'll grant you an audience so you can prove your expertise, but they're using your market signals to decide if you're worth the risk of granting that audience.
Exactly.
So the expertise doesn't speak for itself until you're allowed to speak. That's a pretty sobering thought. If we follow this logic, what exactly are these fragments?
Well, these fragments are the specific market signals that buyers notice.
Because we're talking about things that might seem like trivial marketing tasks to a founder, but in reality, they carry the weight of a first-round interview.
They carry immense weight because they are quite literally all the buyer has to go on. It's the category you put yourself in. It's the language you use on your website headline.
Or like the proof you offer, in your case, examples.
Or fail to offer. It's the core ideas you repeatedly champion on a podcast. It's even the way a referral partner describes you.
Okay, let's hover on that referral piece for a second. Because we tend to think a referral is a golden ticket, right? A guaranteed conversation.
Usually, yeah.
But if I refer a firm by saying, hey, I know these smart folks, they do some sort of operational consulting, you should chat with them, that fragment of language is actually terrible, isn't it?
It is deeply problematic. A referral is not just a warm introduction. It's a fragment of language that tells the buyer how to categorize you.
Oh, interesting.
If the referral uses vague language, the interpretation burden falls squarely on the buyer. The buyer now has to figure out what operational consulting actually means in the context of their specific problem.
And as we established, buyers hate cognitive labor.
They absolutely loathe it.
This connects directly to a specific sequence outlined in the source material that completely shifted how I view the buyer's journey.
Oh, the four-step sequence.
Yeah. It breaks down how a prospect moves from encountering one of these fragments to actually booking a call. The sequence is signal, then interpretation, then confidence, and finally conversation.
Yes. That sequence is the hidden architecture of buyer movement, and missing any step stops the process cold.
So walk us through it.
First, there is the signal. That is simply the raw material the buyer encounters. It's the text on your website, the specific phrasing in a LinkedIn post, or the words used in that referral you mentioned.
Got it.
But the signal itself doesn't do the heavy lifting. The heavy lifting happens in the second most critical step, interpretation.
Because interpretation is what the buyer concludes that signal actually means for them, right?
Precisely. Interpretation is the translation phase. The buyer looks at the signal and asks, does this firm understand my specific industry? Do they seem like generalists hungry for any work, or specialists who have solved this exact problem 100 times?
Right. So if the signal is we offer synergized operational transformations, the interpretation is usually just confusion.
Complete confusion. But if the signal is we fix supply chain bottlenecks for mid-market auto manufacturers, the interpretation is instant clarity.
And when that interpretation is crystal clear, that triggers step 3, confidence.
Exactly. Confidence isn't about liking you. It's the professional trust built from that clear meaning.
Like they feel safe.
Yeah. The buyer thinks, okay, this firm seems to own this specific problem. They have proof, and I could easily explain why I'm talking to them to my CEO.
Which saves their political capital.
Exactly. And only after that specific type of confidence is established do we reach step 4, conversation. The buyer finally reaches out.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if I'm a founder listening to this, and I'm aggressively pushing out content, I'm doing daily LinkedIn posts, publishing weekly newsletters, guesting on 5 podcasts a month, isn't that enough?
You would think so, right?
Shouldn't a massive volume of visibility automatically equal a high level of confidence? It feels like if I just throw enough puzzle pieces at a buyer, eventually they'll assemble the picture themselves and see my full expertise.
This raises an important question, and it highlights a trap that ensnares so many incredibly smart, hardworking consulting firms.
Visibility trap.
Yes, the visibility trap. If the underlying signal is unclear, If your core narrative is fuzzy, more visibility does not create more demand. It just spreads confusion faster.
So it's just broadcasting the fuzziness to a larger audience.
That is exactly what it is. Buyers do not respond to the signal itself. They respond to what they believe it means.
Right.
If you are throwing puzzle pieces at them, as you say, you're forcing the buyer to do the labor of assembling your value proposition. But buyers are busy, they're overwhelmed.
They don't have time for a puzzle.
Exactly. If you make them work to figure out what you do, they will simply abandon the puzzle and choose a firm that hands them the completed picture in a beautiful frame.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we aren't just talking about abstract theory here. The source material gives us a hard, data-backed comparison of exactly this dynamic in action.
Oh, the Company A versus Company B case study.
Yes. It perfectly illustrates the danger of invisible exclusion. And the numbers completely shatter the illusion that just doing more is the answer.
It really does.
So both of these consulting firms used the exact same platform for outreach. They both had the exact same acceptance rate of about 25%. But the outcomes couldn't have been more different.
The outcomes were worlds apart. And for a very specific mechanical reason, let's look at Company A first.
Okay.
Company A played the volume game. They sent roughly 10,000 connection requests.
Wow.
Yeah. And because they had that 25% acceptance rate, they got about 2,500 accepted connections.
Which, if you are just looking at a dashboard, that looks like incredible momentum.
It looks amazing. 2,500 people raised their hand and said, sure, I'll connect with you.
Right. But what was the actual business result? From those 2,500 connections, Company A generated 0 meaningful leads.
0.
0 discovery calls. They had massive reach, they had lots of activity, but they generated absolutely no buyer meaning.
Because their message was likely something generic like, hi, we help businesses scale through optimized synergies. Let's hop on a call to see how we can add value.
Just a puzzle piece with no picture on it.
Exactly. But then you look at Company B. Company B only sent roughly 1,000 connection requests.
So a tenth of the activity.
Right. They got about 300 accepted connections. Again, that same 25% acceptance rate. But from those 300 connections, they generated more than 75 real qualified leads.
That is wild.
Company B didn't just do more. As you said, they did a tenth of the activity of Company A.
So the difference wasn't the tool they used or the platform. It certainly wasn't the volume of activity. The difference was interpretation.
Precisely. Company B made their outreach hyper-targeted and entirely customer-centric. They didn't just ask for attention, they provided immediate context.
I imagine Company B's message sounded more like, I see you're an auto manufacturer CFO. We just helped a similar firm reduce supply chain bottlenecks by 14%. Thought we should connect in case you ever run into similar friction.
Exactly. When a buyer looked at Company B's signals, they didn't have to assemble a puzzle. They instantly understood what problem the firm solved, why it mattered to their specific situation, and why the firm was credible.
So Company A created noise, but Company B created meaning.
That's the perfect way to put it.
It's the difference between walking up to a stranger at a networking event and shouting, I'm a consultant, versus saying, I see you're struggling to untangle your logistics. Here is exactly how we solved that for 3 companies just like yours.
One is just activity. The other guides the buyer to a specific interpretation. The buyer looks at Company B and immediately feels that pre-conversation confidence.
And that they get me feeling is how you survive the invisible evaluation. Think about the tragedy of Company A. They were excluded invisibly by 2,500 people who accepted a request, looked at their profile, couldn't figure out how to place them, and simply moved on without saying a word.
It happens every day.
So let's pivot to the practical application for the founder listening to this right now. How do you actively get onto the invisible shortlist? Because we know what not to do. Don't just blast 10,000 generic messages and don't rely on vague corporate buzzwords.
Right.
But what is the actual shift required to turn this around?
The shift requires focusing your entire external presence, every single fragment you put into the market, on becoming, as we mentioned earlier, easy to place.
Easy to place. Yes.
Firms enter a buyer's mental shortlist when they eliminate the cognitive friction of figuring them out. To be easy to place, a buyer needs to be able to instantly answer 4 specific questions about your firm.
Okay, what are the 4 questions? First, what is this firm known for? Second, who exactly do they help? Third, what specific problem do they solve? And fourth, why are they credible enough to remember? Those 4 questions are like the ultimate acid test. If a buyer goes to your website right now, can they answer all 4 of those questions in 5 seconds without scrolling?
Usually the answer is no.
Right, because if the answer they find is we offer end-to-end holistic solutions for modern enterprises, you failed all 4 questions.
You're back to the puzzle pieces.
Exactly. But if the answer is we are known for forensic accounting, we help mid-sized healthcare providers, we solve the problem of missing revenue in complex billing systems, and we are credible because we've recovered $50 million for clinics like yours. Boom.
You are incredibly easy to place. And notice the difference in cognitive load between those two examples.
It's night and day.
In that second example, the buyer doesn't have to work at all. You've handed them the completed picture.
But let me play devil's advocate here, because this sounds almost too simple. So what does this all mean? Does this mean a founder just needs to write one perfect viral piece of thought leadership? Like if they just craft the ultimate LinkedIn post or the perfect manifesto that answers those 4 questions, will they instantly build this compounding authority and be permanently placed in every buyer's mind?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see that authority is not a lightning strike.
You can't just go viral once.
No, you cannot hack trust. Authority is an architecture. It has to be built, and crucially, it has to be maintained over time. Shortlists do not form from one perfect post, no matter how brilliant it is.
How do they form then?
They form through repeated signals. Authority only compounds when the market sees consistent clarity, consistent proof, and consistent relevance.
So you can't just be clear once. You have to be clear, and then you have to be visible with that exact same clarity over and over and over again.
Yes, it's the sequence we talked about earlier. Signal, interpretation, confidence, conversation, but applied on a macro level over time.
That makes total sense.
If you just have visibility without the clear narrative, you fall into the visibility trap. But if you have the clear narrative with no visibility, you remain a best-kept secret.
So it's the compounding effect of doing both right repeatedly that builds the mental shortlist.
Exactly. It is about treating your external presence with the exact same rigor you treat your internal client deliverables.
That's such a great point. You would never hand a client a confusing, disjointed report and tell them, hey, all the data's in there somewhere, just piece it together yourself.
Never.
Yet every single day, firms hand the market a confusing, disjointed set of signals and expect buyers to piece together their expertise.
And becoming easy to place is ultimately an act of deep empathy for the buyer. It says, I know you are busy, I know you are overwhelmed, and I know you are managing professional risk, so I'm going to make it incredibly obvious why we're the safest, smartest choice to solve this specific problem.
It's a total paradigm shift. It's moving away from ego-driven marketing, like look how smart we are, to empathy-driven positioning. Look how easy we make this for you.
Exactly.
All right, let's synthesize the core lessons we've unpacked today for our listeners because there is a lot of tactical depth here. First, buyers are evaluating your firm before you even know they exist. The starting line is a myth.
Yep.
Second, shortlists form through repeated, consistent signals, not from a single viral post.
Vital to remember.
Third, your firm enters a buyer's mental shortlist only when you become easy to place and easy to trust. And finally, authority compounds, but only when the market sees consistent clarity, proof, and relevance.
Those are the absolute essential takeaways. And if you want to explore the mechanics of this further, I highly recommend visiting the related sections in The Authority Gap.
Yeah, it's all in there.
The book breaks down exactly how to audit the fragments you're leaving in the market, so you can ensure you are actually building that pre-conversation confidence. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We've talked a lot today about the deals you never even knew existed, but think about the last good fit deal you actually lost. The one where you made it all the way to the proposal stage, you thought you nailed the pitch, but they just went a different direction.
The one that still hurts.
Right. What if that deal wasn't actually lost at the proposal stage? What if it was lost 3 months earlier, when a buyer quietly couldn't connect your website's generic language to their specific urgent problem, and they walked into that final proposal meeting already favoring the firm that was easier to place?
If you want to know whether your firm is making it onto the buyer's invisible shortlist, take the Custom Authority Gap Prescription Quiz. It takes about 2 minutes, shows you where your authority gaps may be, and gives you the option to participate in a discussion group led by Derek Little, author of The Authority Gap. The Authority Gap is available on Amazon. To get the Authority Gap Reader Preview Kit, including the field guide and preview chapters, visit the book page at trailblazermastery.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.